Welcome to ParadoxWalk podcast, specializing in paranormal activity, UFOs, cryptids, anything completely out of the ordinary. Today's episode will be going over a few cases of what they would call the immortals. I don't know if these people really live forever, but they seem to never age. A couple of reasons what might be going on with these things. It won't be just that famous guy, Count Saint Germain, I'll mention a couple stories from him, but there's a couple others. A lot of this, what I will be going over, a lot of it will be from another podcast channel called Paranormal Roundtable. I don't know if he's posting anymore, but they're a podcast out of Texas. He digs up a lot of these really interesting stories, and his episode is called The Immortals, is the name of it, and it's early in his career of podcasting, so I think it's episode number 69. Nice, right? So check that one out. And now I'll just kind of do a quick overview. His Paranormal Roundtable episodes, I think they're like an hour and a half or something like that. And then some of his live streams are like 3 hours or something. But he did this as like an official episode. This was somebody that he knew. Somebody contacted him, and she tells a fairly fantastic tale. I'm sure a lot of people won't even believe it, but he vetted her. He knows her. He talked to her extensively. And later, he actually saw the guy's Facebook page. After a while, the guy made a Facebook page, but he quickly deleted it. I'll just start at the beginning. So an elderly lady contacted this man. His name's Josh. He runs the show. And he was known to be somebody that collects a lot of odd stories like this. And she told him that, I think on a cruise ship, I don't want to mess this up, so if anything I'm saying is wrong, I apologize, but his episode's right there. Just check it out. She starts off by saying that she met him on a cruise ship. They ended up quickly, like almost like a whirlwind romance is what I'm looking for, and ended up married. She said this guy was like the sweetest guy, really smart, knew several languages. He knew many different things about different like subjects. Okay, so when they met, they were, I believe, in their 20s or early 30s or something. Everything was fine. They were married for a while, like years and years. One day they ordered takeout food from a restaurant. I believe this was, I don't want to mess this up, somewhere around the 70s or 80s. He said he was going to go pick it up, and he never came back. Later, she finds at the house, because, they're husband and wife, boxes full of different driver's license, identifications, social security cards. These were, they seemed like legitimate things, and they were dated from like years and years and years ago, like way before they could have even been together. She doesn't want to accept that her husband just walked away and never came back. And she had no suspicions of him cheating on her or anything out of the ordinary like that. It just seemed like the most bizarre thing. She hired a private investigator. The guy tracks him down. The private investigator contacts the man in question, and he admits it. And he says, "Yeah, I'm the guy you're looking for." The private investigator contacts his client. This is the wife, and he agrees to talk to her. The husband agrees to talk to her, and he explains everything. And his explanation is, "I don't ever age," and it was getting to the point where people would start noticing or something, and you would start noticing and all that. And she's like, "Well, what do you mean?" Like, so he said he'll start from the beginning. And he told her that he woke up in a field somewhere in like the nether, I want to say like a Scandinavian country. He woke up in like a field, not knowing how he got there. And the year was like this, I think it was the 1600s. Or 1700s. I think it was the 1600s or something like that. He wakes up and just kind of wanders over to like an area with like boats, and he seemed to like know stuff about boats, and he spoke the language, and it seemed like he was from there. And he has these distant kind of memories of like working at a flower shop, but he couldn't really put it all together. And he knew about like sailing. He knew a lot about like navigating a boat and sailing and doing stuff. So he just went straight over to where the boats are, and he started working on a boat. He told her that he never gets sick, he never ages, and he's not sure if he can die. He's not saying that he's immortal. He just said, "I don't know if I can." He had been injured. He fell overboard on a boat once, and he said that like some of the crew people like were able to revive him or something like that. But other than that, he got injured in a war. I think at some point he agrees to meet her, and he moved out of state. I think he went somewhere in Montana or Minnesota or something. So I think he met up with her one more time. It goes even deeper than that. Like she asked him, so he let her just kind of go with all the questions. She asked him, well, what if somebody like goes right up to your head and blows your head off with a shotgun? He's like, yeah, I think I'll die from that. But I guess it would take something like super serious injury. And he doesn't know how this happened to him. And I don't know, to me, it seems like somebody did something. Somebody with some like knowledge did something to him. So he said, at some point he contacted her again. Like, I guess he really, he was really in love with her. And was like years and years later. I think she was elderly at this point when like Facebook and stuff came out. I think that's at the point where she told the Paranormal Roundtable podcast, and he actually tried to ask him questions. He went to the Facebook page and he's like, yes, this man appeared to be a 30-year-old man still, good-looking guy, and I think when his Facebook page was up, he had pictures of himself skydiving. And he asked a question like, I think it was just something simple like, hey, are you this guy that blah, blah, blah? I don't know. I don't remember I don't even know if he said what he asked completely, but once the question was like direct message sent to him, the Facebook page went totally dark and everything was deleted like right away. Weird, right? That's one of the stories. There's more details. Josh, his name's Josh that does the podcast. He does a good job. It's probably my favorite episode. Check that one out. Oh, actually, Josh on that podcast and people that he works with, he's got like a regular job of security. He's a security guard. They came up with a similar story with somebody that applied at the security company, being security guards. And same type of story. This man appeared to be, in his 30s or so, and also spoke several languages. And one of the other security guards said, I worked with this guy like in the 80s or something, and he was the same age. And this, in 2000 something. Later on, I guess somebody saw him, I think Las Vegas, like years later again, and he looked exactly the same. But yeah, eventually, when too many people figure it out, I guess these guys just move to another city, move to another state, and start over. I don't know how comfortable I'd be doing that all the time, but that's two. And another one, this is kind of more like through the annals of history. There seems to be a story of a man named Saint Germain. And it's kind of a similar story. People claim to have run into him like in the 1700s. He was like a university professor, and then like later on, the same person that attended his class like saw him like 50 years later and said he looked exactly the same. Count Saint Germain is listed and advising different kings and queens at like different periods of time in history. So people have gathered either he was a time traveler or he just never aged as well. And on the same video is a very interesting comment. It just kind of goes into some of these things. On this video, the top comment is by a user named La Poetessa. Now, she tells a very strange story about, my friend, I don't know how to pronounce any French. Spanish I can handle, but I can't handle any French. They mention a lady named Emma Calvé that seemed to run into Count Saint Germain. And she says that that lady was an occultist and an opera singer, Emma Calvé. She tells a story of Abbé Beneger Saunieri. I don't know how to pronounce French. This guy all of a sudden got a bunch of money. They believe that he was a priest that was in a romantic relationship with her. One of the things that she mentions is Saint Germain again. I'll just read it. The fact that Saint Germain warned King Louis VI and Marie Antoinette is no surprise because he was involved in Freemasonry, and there were plans in the making for many years to bring down the French monarchy. Or actually, I listened to the audiobook supposedly written by Saint Germain, and it's impossible to understand. It's like all symbolic and stuff, and it sounds like fantastical. Like, I entered into the realm, and then this happened, and the giant bird, I was supposed to do something with the bird, and it was like just weird stuff. I did listen to the whole audiobook. You can check it out. But this is her comment. As for Saint Germain, perhaps he was a time traveler. I believe this is an old technology which the Templiers, she calls it Templiers, may have found, and then she'll say why, may have found below the old Temple of Solomon. Even the word temple, right, is temp. Temp means time. The Temple of Solomon, and brought it back to France in the 1100s. And then she says, L-I-E-N, lean, means link or connection. And someone with a link dropped the N for an R to get lier. So Templar in French is Templier. So lier means link. So temp means time. So time link. So that's interesting to me. Maybe they do. I know going back to Freemasonry, it's rumored that the blue lodges work with rules and space, like rules, laws, and space, and the red lodges, which is the color that the Templars used, right? The Knights Templar might be, that might be why they're red. The red is rumored to be working with blood and time. Interesting stuff all around for that, but I looked into aging, and there doesn't seem to be one thing that causes a person to age, but there seems to be this one idea that you can actually put your finger on, and it has to do with chromosomes. There's this, I apologize to anybody in healthcare that actually knows more about this, but I'm going to try to be as accurate as I can with this. It's called telomerase, and what those things are is they're actually part of the DNA itself, but not part that gets coded per se for when a cell divides, the chromosomes get copied, right? At the end of each chromosome, the DNA kind of like winds itself up, almost like a protector type thing. What I've read, I guess you can imagine it as, say you're braiding your daughter's hair or braiding a girl's hair, and she has like 2 feet of hair that you're braiding. And instead of using a rubber band at the end to hold the braids together, let's just say you tie the braids into a knot. And that extra amount of hair would be kind of like a picture of what these telomeres are. They're like these long strands that kind of tie themselves up. The problem is that either as you get older, those things get shorter, or some people believe it might be the other way around. As those ends get shorter and shorter as they divide more throughout your life, you actually age because of that. Difficult to say, but there's like enzymes in your body that can like keep producing those things longer. The problem is something like a cancer cell uses the same thing, and I guess the telomeres on the ends of cancer cells are very, very long, and they never die when they reproduce themselves. So there seems to be some kind of connection with these actual strands and the aging of the cell. It's an interesting topic, and it kind of lends itself to making you think that maybe there's something that somebody could eat or drink and make these parts of the cells longer without helping the cancer cells or cells that are dividing wrong in the body, I'd like to thank everybody for checking out the podcast. My Patreon is patreon.com/ParadoxWalk. Remember to copy the RSS feed to be notified of all the latest podcasts. And the music is Downbeat 88. The opening track is called The Dark. The ending track is called Moment of Peace. Hope everybody's doing good. Talk to you soon. Bye.